The Texas heat shimmered over the Ramirez homestead, casting dancing shadows across the sun-baked garden where Sofia Ramirez tossed a worn tennis ball to Atlas, her imposing Belgian Malinois, whose powerful frame moved with a deceptive gentleness. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you that masked his true nature. To passers-by, Atlas was just another family pet, devoted to his 11-year-old companion, but behind those vigilant amber eyes lurked the instincts of a hardened warrior, one who had tracked cartel operatives through the deadliest regions of Mexico's drug corridors. When 3 black SUVs slithered toward their property that scorching afternoon, their occupants saw only a child playing with her oversized dog. What they didn't know was that Atlas wasn't just a pet. He was a decorated veteran of Mexico's Special Forces Canine unit, and he was about to embark on one final mission. The morning sun painted long shadows across the sprawling property on the outskirts of San Antonio, Texas, where the Ramirez family had built their peaceful sanctuary. Carmen Ramirez stood at her kitchen window, watching her daughter Sofia playing fetch with Atlas in their expansive backyard. The Belgian Malinois' muscular form moved with fluid precision, his dark coat gleaming like polished obsidian in the early morning light. To most, Atlas appeared to be just another family guard dog, albeit an exceptionally well-trained one. But Carmen knew better. Before becoming their protector, Atlas had served 5 years with Mexico's elite Special Forces Canine unit, specializing in cartel interdiction and hostage rescue operations. Sofia's father, Miguel, had been Atlas's handler and trainer in the unit before both were wounded in their final operation together. Carmen's chest tightened as she remembered the day 3 years ago when she'd received the call. Miguel had survived the initial attack, but succumbed to his injuries 2 days later. His last act had been arranging for Atlas, also wounded but recovering, to be retired to his family in Texas. "He'll keep you safe," Miguel had whispered during their final conversation. "He's more than just a dog. He's a guardian angel with teeth." The transition hadn't been easy. Atlas arrived with deep physical and emotional scars, the legacy of years spent in Mexico's shadow war against the cartels. Like many veterans, he struggled with the adjustment to civilian life. Loud noises would send him into high alert, and thunderstorms would drive him to patrol the house restlessly, checking every window and door. But Sofia had proven to be his salvation. The girl, just 8 when Atlas arrived, seemed to possess an innate understanding of the wounded warrior. She would sit quietly with him during his anxious moments, reading books or simply offering her gentle presence. Gradually, the hardened military dog learned to be a family companion, though he never lost the alertness that had kept him alive through countless operations. "Mama, mira!" Sofia called out, drawing Carmen from her memories. The girl had taught Atlas a new trick, getting the serious-minded dog to balance the tennis ball on his nose. Carmen couldn't help but smile at the sight. Even now, after 3 years, it amazed her how the same dog who had once tracked cartel sicarios through Mexico's most dangerous territories could show such gentle patience with a child. Atlas's ears suddenly pricked forward, his head turning sharply toward the property's entrance. The tennis ball dropped forgotten to the ground as the dog's posture shifted subtly. To most, he would still appear relaxed, but Carmen recognized the change. This was the stance of a trained operator, assessing a potential threat. A white service van had pulled up to their gate, emblazoned with the logo of their security company. Carmen frowned. They weren't expecting any maintenance today, and Miguel had taught her to treat coincidences with suspicion. She reached for her phone, finding the security company's number in her contacts. "Sofia, tiempo de descanso," Carmen called out, using their code phrase for potential danger. The girl immediately understood, walking casually toward the house, with Atlas falling into step beside her, his powerful frame positioned between Sofia and the gate. Carmen felt a surge of pride at how well her daughter remembered her father's security protocols. The van remained idling at the gate as Carmen dialed the security company. She watched through the window as two men in company uniforms stepped out, toolboxes in hand. Everything about them looked correct. The uniforms, the van, even their unhurried professional demeanor. But Atlas's behavior told a different story, and Carmen had learned to trust the instincts of a dog who had spent years distinguishing friend from foe in the most dangerous circumstances imaginable. As the phone rang, Carmen's hand moved to the hidden compartment beneath the kitchen counter, where Miguel had installed a small safe. Inside lay a reminder that while they had fled to Texas for safety, they weren't naive about the long reach of vengeance. What the men at the gate couldn't know was that this seemingly ordinary American household was prepared for exactly this type of visit, and they had no idea they were about to confront not just a family pet, but a four-legged veteran of Mexico's darkest battlefields. 2 miles from the Ramirez property, in an abandoned warehouse off Highway 90, Javier Mendoza studied satellite images on his laptop while his men prepared their weapons. The scarred Cartel lieutenant's fingers traced the route to their target. On the screen, his expression hardening as he thought about Miguel Ramirez's betrayal 3 years ago. The operation that had cost him his right eye and landed him in a Mexican prison had been orchestrated by Ramirez and his damned dog. The property has minimal security, Javier explained to his team, zooming in on the aerial view. Standard cameras and sensors, but nothing military grade. They think living in Texas makes them untouchable. He switched to a different image, showing Carmen and Sofia Ramirez at a local grocery store. The woman works from home as a software developer. The girl goes to private school but is home today for a teacher development day. Diego, his second-in-command, pointed to another image showing Atlas patrolling the property's perimeter. What about the dog? That's a Belgian Malinois, military breed. Javier waved dismissively, though his remaining eye narrowed slightly. Just a family pet now. Intel shows they adopted it after Ramirez died, probably trying to feel safe. He didn't mention his suspicion that this might be the same dog from Mexico. It couldn't be. That animal had been as badly wounded as its handler. Besides, even if it was, 3 years of civilian life would have softened any military training. Remember, Javier continued, checking his custom-made Colt, we need the woman alive and cooperative. She has access to systems that can help us track other former operatives who've fled north. The girl is leverage. No harm comes to her unless absolutely necessary. Los Zetas don't need the attention that killing children brings. His team of 8 men nodded solemnly. They were professionals, chosen specifically for this mission requiring discretion. The cartel couldn't afford another high-profile incident that might draw further scrutiny from both Mexican and American authorities. The security company van is in position, reported Carlos, their tech specialist, looking up from his phone. Guards at the front gate changed shift an hour ago. No patrol scheduled for another 40 minutes. Javier checked his watch. Everything was proceeding according to plan. They had spent weeks preparing for this operation, building detailed profiles of the Ramirez family's routines. Carmen was cautious, but not paranoid. Sofia was well-trained in security protocols, but still just a child. The dog. Javier pushed away his unease about the animal. He had seen too many good men laid low by overthinking minor details. 2 teams, he instructed, gathering his men around the tactical map. Diego, you take 3 men in the security. Van, play it straight, routine maintenance check, get them to open the gate. Carlos has looped the camera feed, so central monitoring won't see anything unusual. Diego adjusted his borrowed security company uniform, checking that the fake ID badge was properly positioned. "And if they call to verify?" "Already handled," Carlos interjected. "We've redirected their security company's phone line. Any call goes to our people." Javier nodded in approval before continuing. "My team follows in the SUVs once you've secured entry. We take the house quick and quiet. In and out in 15 minutes. By the time anyone realizes something's wrong, we'll be halfway to Mexico with our guests." The men began their final preparations, checking weapons and communications equipment. Javier moved to the warehouse window, staring in the direction of the Ramirez property. 3 years he had waited for this moment, building his power base within Los Zetas, earning the right to lead this mission. Miguel Ramirez had died before Javier could exact his revenge, but the family would serve just as well. "Patron," Diego approached cautiously. "The men are ready." Javier turned from the window, his scarred face reflected in the gleaming hood of the security company van. Miguel Ramirez thought he could strike a blow against the cartel and hide his family in Texas, he said softly, almost to himself. He died thinking they would be safe here. Today we show that Los Zetas never forget their enemies. The men moved to their vehicles with practiced efficiency. In the security van, Diego reviewed the property blueprints one final time. The house was large but not fortified, typical upper-middle-class American construction. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. The security system was good, but designed to detect common burglars, not a professional tactical team. "Remember," Javier's voice crackled over their encrypted radio channel as the vehicles pulled out of the warehouse, "we have multiple objectives. The woman's cooperation, the girl's capture, and most importantly, sending a message to any other former operatives who think they can betray the cartel and hide behind the American border." As the small convoy headed toward the Ramirez property, none of the men gave much thought to the Belgian Malinois they had observed through surveillance. After all, what threat could a simple family pet pose to seasoned cartel operators? They were about to learn that some weapons come disguised as man's best friend, and that a warrior's instincts never truly fade. They just wait for the right moment to reawaken. Carmen's call to the security company rang once, twice, 3 times before disconnecting abruptly. She frowned, trying again with the same result. Through the kitchen window, she watched as the 2 men at the gate consulted a clipboard, their movements deliberate and professional. Everything about them looked legitimate, yet Atlas's behavior told a different story. The Belgian Malinois stood alertly beside Sofia in the kitchen, his muscular frame coiled with barely contained tension. Most people wouldn't notice the subtle changes in his demeanor, the slight forward cant of his ears, the almost imperceptible raise of his hackles, the way his nose worked continuously to process information about the newcomers. But Carmen had learned to read these signs over the past 3 years, just as Miguel had taught her to read the other warning signs that most people missed. "Mummy," Sofia whispered, one hand buried in Atlas's dark fur. "His body feels different, like it did during the thunderstorm last month, but more." The girl's voice remained calm, but her eyes showed understanding beyond her 11 years. Miguel had made sure his daughter knew how to recognize danger without showing fear. Carmen moved away from the window, her movements casual in case they were being watched. She pressed her thumb against a seemingly ordinary spot on the kitchen counter's underside. A quiet click preceded the opening of a hidden panel, revealing a small safe. Miguel had installed several such hiding spots throughout the house. Insurance policies, he had called them, for the day he feared might come. "Sofia, mi amor," Carmen said softly, maintaining her composure as she retrieved a satellite phone from the safe. Remember the game Papi taught you? About the special hiding places? Sofia nodded, her hand never leaving Atlas's fur. The quiet game, where we hide and stay super quiet until the special word. Exactly, mi vida. I need you to play that game now. Take Atlas and go to the special room. Remember the rules. No lights, no sounds, stay away from the walls and wait for the password or... Sofia's voice trembled slightly, or until Atlas says it's safe. Carmen's heart swelled with pride and ached with sadness simultaneously. No child should need to know such things, but Miguel had insisted. He had known that his past might someday catch up with them, even here in Texas, even after his death. The security company van's engine continued to idle at the gate, its ordinary white paint reflecting the morning sun. Carmen's trained eye caught subtle details now, the slight irregularity in the company logo's coloring, the way both men kept their right hands close to their bodies, likely near concealed weapons. "Now, Sofia," Carmen whispered, giving her daughter a gentle push toward the hallway. Atlas moved with the girl, but his head remained turned toward the front of the house, his body positioning itself between Sofia and potential threats. Carmen watched them disappear down the hallway, knowing they would head for the hidden panic room Miguel had built when they first bought the house. To anyone examining the blueprints, it appeared to be part of the HVAC system. But like everything Miguel had designed, it served a deeper purpose. Retrieving her phone again, Carmen dialed a different number, one Miguel had made her memorize, with strict instructions to use it only in the gravest emergencies. It connected immediately. "La tormenta ha llegado," she said quietly, using the code phrase Miguel had established. "Storm has arrived." "Understood," replied a clipped voice. "Protection team activating. Minimum response time, 20 minutes. Can you secure the package?" "Yes," Carmen answered, knowing they meant Sofia, "but I think they're already here." "Maintain protocol. Do not engage unless—" The line went dead. Carmen's heart rate increased, but her hands remained steady as she moved through the house, following the security procedures Miguel had drilled into her. The satellite phone went into her pocket. They might have killed the regular cell service, but this one operated on different networks. The pistol from the safe went into the specially designed holster at the small of her back, concealed but accessible. At the front of the house, she heard the gate's electronic mechanism activating. Someone had triggered the emergency override. Through the security camera's feed on her phone, she watched the white van pull slowly up the driveway. Behind it, she caught glimpses of dark SUVs waiting on the road. In the distance, thunder rolled across the Texas sky, though no storms had been forecast. Carmen felt an odd sense of calm settle over her. Miguel had always said that accepting the inevitability of conflict was the first step in surviving it. "The cartel has a long memory," he had warned her. "If they ever come, it won't be for revenge. It will be for leverage, information, power. That makes them predictable." She thought of Sofia, safely hidden away with Atlas. The dog might be their ultimate surprise, a weapon the cartel had forgotten about, dismissed as a mere pet. But Carmen knew better. She had seen Atlas's training videos from his time in the unit, watched him work with Miguel. 3 years of peaceful family life hadn't erased those skills. They had just been waiting, dormant, for the moment they would be needed again. The van stopped in front of the house. Carmen took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and prepared to open the door. Sometimes, Miguel had taught her, the best defense is letting your enemy think they've already won. Atlas moved silently through the darkened panic room, his nails making no sound on the specially padded flooring. Sofia sat quietly in the corner, just as she had been trained, her breathing steady despite the fear Atlas could smell radiating from her. The Belgian Malinois' military training had kicked in the moment he'd detected the strange men's scents, traces of gunpowder, metal, and the distinct odor of threat. that he remembered from his operations in Mexico. Every few minutes, the dog would pause his patrol of the small space to press his nose against Sofia's hand, offering reassurance while maintaining his vigilance. His ears constantly moved, processing the sounds from above and around them, filtering out the familiar hum of the house's systems to focus on any signs of intrusion. Through the reinforced walls, Atlas could hear Carmen's steady footsteps approaching the front door, his muscles tensed, training and instinct warring with each other. Part of him wanted to rush upstairs, to stand between his family and the threats. He could sense gathering outside, but his years of military service had taught him patience and strategy. Miguel had trained him not just to attack, but to think, to plan, to wait for the perfect moment. Sofia's small hand found his fur in the darkness. "It's okay, Atlas," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "We're playing the quiet game, remember? Just like Papi taught us." The girl's attempt at bravery made Atlas press closer to her. In the 3 years since he'd come to live with them, his mission had transformed from serving his country to protecting this family. His family. Upstairs, the front door opened. Atlas's ears pricked forward, cataloguing the sounds of multiple boots on hardwood flooring. 5 sets, he determined, moving with the practiced step of tactical training. Their scents carried hints of Mexico, different cigarettes, different detergents, the subtle markers that told him these men had recently crossed the border. "Mrs. Ramirez," a heavily accented voice spoke, its false friendliness setting Atlas's teeth on edge. "We're here from Securitech for a routine system upgrade. We tried calling ahead, but there seems to be some problem with the phone lines." Carmen's response was calm, controlled. "I wasn't notified of any scheduled maintenance today." "Ah, yes. Our apologies. It was a last-minute addition. If you'd like to call our office to verify—" "I already tried," Carmen interrupted. "As you said, the phones seem to be having problems." Atlas detected the subtle shift in the men's postures through the vibrations in the floor, the moment when pretense began to give way to action. He could smell the metal and oil of concealed weapons, hear the whisper of tactical gear beneath their uniforms. "Perhaps we should come inside to discuss this," the same voice suggested, all pretense of friendliness gone. "We wouldn't want anything to happen to your lovely daughter. Where is little Sofia, by the way?" The temperature in the panic room seemed to drop at those words. Sofia's hand tightened in Atlas's fur, but she remained silent, just as she had been taught. Atlas felt a low growl building in his chest, but suppressed it, maintaining his tactical silence. Through the house's audio system, carefully hidden speakers carried every word to them. Miguel had designed the panic room not just as a hiding place, but as a command center, allowing its occupants to monitor every room in the house. Atlas recognized the shift in Carmen's tone, the same steel he had heard in Miguel's voice during operations. "My daughter is at school," Carmen lied smoothly, "and I think you should leave, now." "Senora Ramirez," a new voice spoke, this one carrying the unmistakable authority of command. "Let's not play games. We know Sofia is here. We've been watching your house for weeks. The teacher development day at her school provided the perfect opportunity." Atlas heard more footsteps, the rest of the tactical team entering from other points of the house. 8 men total now, moving with professional precision. In his mind, he began mapping their positions, analyzing patterns of movement, identifying the threats just as he had been trained to do in Mexico. "You have one chance," the commander continued. "Tell us where Sofia is. Cooperate with our requests. And no one needs to get hurt. Resist and, well, Los Zetas aren't known for their patience." Sofia's breath caught at the cartel's name. Atlas pressed against her reassuringly, his mind racing through combat scenarios. In the darkness of the panic room, his military training merged with his protective instincts, forming a tactical approach. He knew every inch of this house, every escape route, every choke point. More importantly, he knew what these men didn't. That he was not just a family pet, but a weapon they had overlooked. Upstairs, he heard Carmen's defiant response. "You made a mistake coming here. Miguel prepared us for this day." "Miguel is dead," the commander spat, "and his preparations won't save you. Find the girl," he ordered his men. "Search every room. And if that dog gets in the way, kill it." Atlas's muscles coiled, ready for action. In the darkness, Sofia leaned close to his ear and whispered the activation phrase Miguel had taught her for extreme emergencies. Atlas, protect, and serve. 3 years of peaceful family life fell away in an instant. Atlas was no longer just a family pet. He was once again Atlas of the Mexican Special Forces Canine unit, and he had a mission to complete. The sound of boots on hardwood echoed through the house as the cartel members began their systematic search. Atlas remained perfectly still in the darkness of the panic room, his training taking over as he processed every sound, every vibration, building a mental map of the intruder's movements. Above them, he could hear 3 men moving through the main floor while others headed upstairs. Their movements were professional, coordinated. These weren't common criminals, but trained operators. "Check every closet, every cabinet big enough for a child," the commander ordered, his voice carrying through the house's audio system. "Rodriguez, Martinez, check the basement. These American houses always have basements." Sofia's hand remained, buried in Atlas's fur, her breathing controlled, just as Miguel had taught her. The panic room was technically part of the basement, hidden behind a false wall that appeared to be part of the house's foundation. Even if they found the basement, they would need to know exactly where to look and how to access the hidden door. "Nothing in the kitchen," one of the men reported, "but there's a safe under the counter, recently opened." "The woman was ready for us," the commander replied. "Keep searching, and maintain radio silence unless you find something. We don't know what kind of monitoring equipment they have." Atlas's ears twitched as he caught the subtle sound of Carmen moving upstairs. She was following the protocol Miguel had established, making herself the primary target to keep attention away from Sofia's hiding place. The dog's muscles tensed, knowing what would come next. "Check behind the paintings," another voice called out. "Rich Americans love hidden safes behind paintings." The methodical search continued, drawing closer to the basement entrance. Atlas could hear 2 men descending the stairs, their weapons at ready position based on the subtle sounds of their gear. In the darkness, Sofia pressed closer to him. "Atlas," she whispered, so softly that only his enhanced hearing could catch it, "I'm scared." The Belgian Malinois responded by pressing his cold nose against her hand, a gesture that had become their secret form of communication over the years. In his mind, multiple tactical scenarios were playing out, just as he had been trained. The panic room had 2 exits, the main entrance hidden in the basement wall, and an emergency tunnel that led to the garage. Miguel had designed it this way, knowing that any security measure could be compromised given enough time. Suddenly, a sharp cry from upstairs shattered the tension. "Got her! Master bedroom!" Atlas's ears pricked forward as he heard the sounds of struggle, followed by Carmen's defiant voice. "You're making a mistake. Bring her down," the commander ordered. "Search her for weapons." The sound of a scuffle followed, then the distinct sound of a pistol hitting the floor. "She's armed," one of the men shouted. "Of course she is." The commander's voice carried a note of amusement. "Miguel would have made sure of that. Mrs. Ramirez, you're only making this harder on yourself. Tell us where Sofia is and we can end this quickly." Through the audio system, Atlas could hear Carmen's breathing, rapid but controlled. She was buying time, he realized, following the protocol for when the security team was en route. Every Minute she kept them focused on her was another minute closer to reinforcements arriving. "The house is clear upstairs," another voice reported. "No sign of the girl. Check outside," the commander ordered. "She might have run when she saw us coming. And find that dog. I don't like that we haven't seen it." Atlas felt Sofia tense beside him. The girl understood enough Spanish to follow the conversations, and the mention of her mother had her shifting anxiously. Atlas pressed against her again, a silent reminder to maintain their tactical silence. Boots on the basement stairs again, heavier this time, more men moving down to join the search. Atlas could hear them tapping the walls, looking for hollow spots. They were professionals, he realized. They wouldn't miss the subtle differences in sound that might give away the panic room's location. "Mrs. Ramirez," the commander's voice, had turned hard now. "We know about Miguel's paranoia. A man like him would have built a safe room. You have 10 seconds to tell us where it is, or we start making things very unpleasant for you." Atlas heard Carmen's defiant response. "Go to hell!" The sharp sound of a slap echoed through the speakers, followed by the commander's cold voice. 10 seconds, 9, 8. Sofia's hand tightened in Atlas's fur. The dog remained perfectly still, every muscle coiled and ready. In his mind, Miguel's voice echoed from their training days. "Timing is everything, boy. Wait for the perfect moment, make them think they're in control, then show them how wrong they are. 7, 6, 5. Atlas heard the basement team drawing closer to the hidden door. Their tapping had become more focused, more deliberate. They were getting close. 4, 3. Sofia's other hand found the emergency release for the panic room's door, another of Miguel's protocols. The girl knew that if they were discovered, staying trapped in the room would mean capture. Better to strike first, to seize the initiative. 2. Atlas's world narrowed to pure tactical. Awareness. 8 hostiles, 2 in the basement, 5 upstairs, 1 in motion. Carmen under direct threat, multiple weapons, but they were trying to avoid gunfire. His military training merged with his protective instincts, forming a perfect synthesis of warrior and guardian. 1. The sound of tapping stopped, replaced by an excited whisper. "Jefe! I think we found something!" Atlas tensed, ready. The time for hiding was over. Now it was time to remind these men why the Mexican Special Forces had called him El Fantasma, the Ghost, during his operations against the cartels. They had forgotten what he was, dismissed him as a mere pet. They were about to remember. The basement erupted into chaos the moment the hidden door began to move. The cartel members had found the subtle seam in the wall, but they weren't prepared for what waited behind it. Atlas launched himself from the darkness like a missile, his years of military training transforming him from family pet to living weapon in the split second between concealment and contact. The first man barely had time to shout before Atlas struck. The Belgian Malinois' powerful jaws clamped down on his weapon arm with precisely calculated force, enough to disable but not maim, just as he'd been trained. The man's rifle clattered to the ground as Atlas used his momentum to drive the target into the second operator, sending both men sprawling. "Pero qué!" The second man's curse was cut short as Atlas's follow-up attack drove the air from his lungs. The dog's movements were a fluid combination of military precision and raw power, each strike targeted to neutralize without killing, a skill honed through countless operations with Miguel. Upstairs, the commotion drew immediate reaction. "What's happening down there?" the commander demanded over their radio channel. Atlas could hear multiple sets of boots moving toward the basement stairs, but he already had his next moves planned. "The dog!" one of the downed men gasped into his radio. "It's not just..." His transmission cut off as Atlas knocked the device from his hand with a precision strike. Sofia used the confusion exactly as she'd been trained, slipping from the panic room to the secondary escape tunnel that led to the garage. Atlas maintained his position between her and the threats, his muscular frame a living barrier that bought her vital seconds to make her escape. "Shoot it!" someone shouted from the stairs. But in the confined space of the basement, with their colleagues in close proximity to the dog, nobody dared risk firing. Atlas had chosen his battlefield perfectly. The narrow stairs and cluttered basement negated the cartel members' numerical advantage. The commander's voice cut through the chaos. "It's Miguel's dog, the one from the unit. Take it down now." Recognition dawned in the eyes of the men facing Atlas. No longer did they see a family pet, but a trained military operator, one who had hunted their kind through the darkest corners of Mexico's drug war. Their hesitation gave Atlas the opening he needed. The Belgian Malinois launched into a series of attacks that Miguel had specifically designed for close-quarter combat. He moved like a shadow, striking vulnerable points with surgical precision. Ankles, wrists, knees, before disappearing into the basement's shadows. His dark coat made him nearly invisible in the dimly lit space, earning him his old nickname, El Fantasma. Upstairs, Atlas heard Carmen using the distraction to her advantage. The sound of a struggle, followed by a sharp crack and a cry of pain, told him she had freed herself from her captor. The commander's furious shouts confirmed it. "Don't let her reach the weapons, and someone get down there and kill that damn dog." But Atlas was already moving to his next target. A cartel member reached the bottom of the stairs, night vision goggles deployed to pierce the darkness. Atlas almost seemed to smile. They were fighting on his terms now. Miguel had trained him extensively with night vision operators, teaching him how to use their equipment's limitations against them. The dog circled silently through the shadows, positioning himself for maximum effect. The man with the goggles swept his weapon back and forth, trying to track Atlas's movement. "I don't see," he began to report, but Atlas was already airborne. 180 pounds of trained muscle and bone struck the man's center mass. As they went down, Atlas knocked the night vision goggles away, plunging the operator back into darkness. The dog's teeth found the man's tactical vest, dragging him deeper into the basement's shadows, where his teammates' flashlights created more confusion than illumination. "Carlos, where are you?" Another operator called out, his flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. Atlas had already moved on, circling back toward the stairs. He could smell the fear beginning to replace the professional calm these men had arrived with. They had come expecting to find a soft target, a woman, a child, and a pet. Instead, they had walked into an ambush orchestrated by a four-legged Special Forces veteran. Above, the sounds of combat told Atlas that Carmen was giving a good account of herself. The commander's frustrated orders suggested that she had managed to secure a defensive position. "Find that girl," he shouted. "She has to be in the house somewhere." But Sofia was already following her escape route, just as they had rehearsed countless times. Atlas allowed himself a moment of pride. His girl had remembered every detail of their drills. Now he just had to keep these men occupied, prevent them from organizing an effective search. A burst of automatic fire stitched across the basement ceiling as one of the operators lost discipline. "Cease fire, you fool!" the commander bellowed. "You want every cop in Texas hearing that?" Atlas used the momentary confusion to strike again, this time targeting the stairs themselves. His powerful shoulder slammed into a support beam that Miguel had specially prepared, weakened just enough that significant force would bring the entire staircase down. The wood cracked with a sound like a gunshot. The basement stairs collapsed in a controlled cascade of wood and metal, trapping two more cartel members in the debris and cutting off the direct route between levels. Atlas had just divided their forces exactly as he'd been trained to do in his military days: isolate, separate, and conquer. In the darkness of the basement, Atlas's low growl resonated with deadly promise. The cartel members now faced a choice: retreat up the ruined stairs toward Carmen's defensive position, or face a military-trained war dog in the darkness of his chosen killing ground. The real battle was about to begin. Carmen Ramirez had used the chaos from the basement to maximum advantage. The moment Atlas had sprung his trap, she'd driven her elbow into her captor's solar plexus, just as Miguel had taught her. The man's grip had loosened enough for her to break free, and years of maintained training took over. She didn't fight fair. Miguel had drilled that out of her early. She fought to win. "Perra!" the commander snarled as Carmen swept his lieutenant's legs out from under him. "Take her alive! We still need those access codes!" But Carmen was already moving, implementing the defense plan they'd practiced so many times. The house itself was a weapon, designed by Miguel with multiple fallback positions and defensive points. She reached the first of these, a reinforced section of hallway with clear lines of sight in both directions, and retrieved the secondary weapon, hidden behind a false electrical panel. The sounds from the basement had become a symphony of chaos. Atlas's growls mixed with shouts of panic and pain, punctuated by the crash of bodies and equipment. The collapse of the stairs had bought her precious time, trapping several of the cartel members below. Now she just had to hold out until help arrived. "Javier!" one of the men called out to the commander. "The dog! It's not fighting like a normal animal, it's using tactics!" "Of course it is, idiota!" Javier's voice carried barely controlled rage. "That's Miguel Ramirez's war dog, the one that helped him raid our staging areas in Sinaloa. 3 years of playing family pet didn't make it forget its training." Carmen allowed herself a grim smile. Miguel had always said that people underestimate what dogs remember, what they're capable of. Atlas had been one of Mexico's most effective weapons in the war against the cartels, not just for his physical capabilities, but for his intelligence and tactical acumen. A burst of gunfire from below made Carmen's heart skip. "I said no shooting!" Javier roared. "You want the entire neighborhood calling the police? It's hunting us in the dark." The response was edged with panic, like it did in the tunnels. In Culiacan, more crashes from the basement followed by cursing in Spanish. Carmen checked her phone. The security team's ETA was still 10 minutes out. She had to keep them occupied, keep them from organizing an effective search for Sofia. Her daughter would be following the escape protocol now, making her way through the hidden tunnel to the garage. "Senora Ramirez," Javier called out, his voice taking on a diplomatic tone. "Let's be reasonable. We know about the panic room. We know about the security protocols. Miguel taught you well, but he's not here to help you anymore. Surrender now, give us what we want, and this ends peacefully." Carmen responded by triggering another of Miguel's surprises, an emergency strobe system that plunged the hallway into a disorienting pattern of light and shadow. In the basement, she heard Atlas taking advantage of the confusion, his attacks becoming more aggressive. "The girl is gone," someone shouted from near the ruined stairs. "There must be another exit from that panic room." Javier's curse echoed through the house. "Find her! Check every inch of this property. She has to be somewhere." His words cut off as Carmen used the strobing lights to her advantage, darting from one position to another, squeezing off a precise shot that shattered the tactical light on his weapon. "You've gotten sloppy, Javier," she called out, using his name to throw him off balance. "Miguel told me about you, how you lost your eye because you got careless during a raid, how you blamed him and Atlas for your own mistakes." A burst of wild gunfire answered her, destroying a section of drywall well away from her position. Carmen smiled grimly. Javier was losing his composure, exactly as she'd hoped. An angry opponent was a careless opponent. From below came more sounds of Atlas's methodical assault. The Belgian Malinois was using the basement's architecture against the cartel members, herding them into corners, striking and withdrawing before they could effectively respond. The basement had become a haunted labyrinth, with a four-legged ghost dealing out punishment from the shadows. "The tunnel!" A shout from outside caught everyone's attention. There's a hidden tunnel entrance in the garage. Carmen's heart raced, but she maintained her calm. Sofia would be well clear by now, following her rehearsed route to their neighbor's panic room. The cartel teams had discovered the exit too late. "Move! Move!" Javier ordered, his tactical training reasserting itself. "Two teams. Circle the property. The girl won't get far on foot." But Carmen knew something they didn't. The tunnel had two branches, one obvious one leading to the garage, and a second, better hidden route that Sofia would have taken. Miguel had designed it this way deliberately, creating an obvious escape route to draw attention from the real one. In the basement, Atlas had heard the exchange. His attacks suddenly intensified, becoming more aggressive, more threatening. He was drawing attention back to himself, Carmen realized, making sure the cartel members couldn't fully commit to searching for Sofia. "Jefe!" A panicked voice crackled over their radios. "We've got incoming vehicles, multiple SUVs looking like private security." Carmen checked her phone again. 8 minutes ahead of schedule. Miguel's old team was living up to their reputation for exceeding expectations. "Fall back!" Javier ordered, "Grab what's left of the basement team," and the rest of his order was drowned out by Atlas's most ferocious assault yet. The war dog had been holding back, Carmen realized. Now, with reinforcements approaching, he was showing them exactly why the cartels had once put a bounty on his head. Atlas moved through the basement darkness like a liquid shadow, his military training transforming the cluttered space into a tactical advantage. The remaining cartel members had clustered together near the ruined stairs, their flashlight beams cutting wild arcs through the darkness as they tried to track his movement. Their professional composure had cracked, replaced by the kind of primal fear that only comes from being hunted by an unseen predator. "He's playing with us," one of them whispered, his voice thick with recognition. "Like in the Sinaloa tunnels." "Dios mío, I thought that dog was dead." Atlas circled silently, his paws making no sound on the concrete floor. Miguel had spent months training him for operations exactly like this, using darkness and fear as weapons, breaking the enemy's will before breaking their bodies. The basement had become his killing ground, and these men were beginning to realize it. Above, Carmen maintained her defensive position as Javier tried to organize a retreat. The sound of approaching vehicles had shifted the tactical situation dramatically. The cartel team's advantage of surprise was gone, and their window for a clean extraction was closing rapidly. "Get our men out of that basement," Javier ordered, his voice carrying an edge of desperation. "Use grenades if you have to." "No explosives," his lieutenant countered. "We're too close to civilian areas. We need to extract now, Jefe." Atlas used their distraction to strike again. He burst from the shadows behind the clustered group, his powerful jaws clamping down on one man's weapon arm. Before the others could react, he had already dragged his target into the darkness, the man's screams echoing off the concrete walls. "Madre de Dios!" Another cartel member broke, sprinting for the ruined stairs. "It's not a dog, it's a demon!" Atlas allowed the man to escape upstairs, one more source of chaos to disrupt their retreat. The Belgian Malinois had learned in Mexico that sometimes the survivors of an attack could cause more damage to an enemy's morale than the casualties. The sound of screeching tires and slamming car doors filtered down from above. The security team had arrived, their synchronized movements audible even from the basement. Atlas recognized their tactical approach. These were professionals, likely former military contractors, hired by Miguel's old unit. "We're blown!" Javier shouted. "Fall back to the vehicles! Rodriguez, Martinez, get up here now!" But the remaining men in the basement hesitated. The stairs were a jumble of broken wood and metal, and Atlas stood between them and their escape route. They had seen enough of his capabilities to know that rushing him would be suicide. "This is a private security team to the armed individuals inside the Ramirez residence," An amplified voice boomed from outside. The property is surrounded. Local law enforcement has been notified. You have 30 seconds to surrender before we breach. Atlas heard Carmen's voice steady and confident. It's over, Javier. Miguel's old team doesn't mess around. You remember how effective they were in Mexico. Kill that dog! Javier's response was a roar of frustrated rage. Whatever it takes! The basement erupted in gunfire as the remaining cartel members finally broke, spraying bullets wildly into the darkness. But Atlas was already moving, using the tactics that had made him legendary among the Special Forces Canine units. He stayed low, using the basement's support columns for cover, letting their panic work against them. Each muzzle flash gave away their position, and Atlas struck with surgical precision. A bite to the back of a knee sent one man sprawling. A shoulder charge knocked another into a stack of storage boxes. His attacks were calculated, designed to disable without killing, just as Miguel had trained him. The gunfire had the unintended effect of masking the security team's breach of the house. By the time the cartel members realized their position was being stormed from above, it was too late to mount an effective resistance. Clear! Clear! Basement stairs are collapsed. 2 tangos down in the hallway. Suspect vehicle attempting to flee out back. The professional calls of the security team echoed through the house as they systematically secured each room. Atlas maintained his pressure on the basement targets, ensuring they couldn't organize a last-minute resistance. Atlas! Carmen's voice carried down from above. Stand down, boy! Area secure! The Belgian Malinois gave one final warning growl to his subdued targets before retreating into the shadows. He made his way up through a secondary access point, another of Miguel's architectural surprises, emerging in the kitchen just as the security team was handcuffing Javier. You! The cartel commander's one good eye widened in recognition as Atlas padded into view. Impossible! You were reported killed in the same operation as Miguel. Atlas fixed him with a steady gaze, his posture relaxed but alert. The dog's dark coat bore no sign of the intense combat he'd just engaged in, living up to his old nickname of El Fantasma. Sofia is safe, one of the security team members reported to Carmen. Our perimeter team intercepted her at the designated rally point. She followed the protocols perfectly. Carmen nodded, tears of relief mixing with pride. Miguel would be proud of both his girls, she said, reaching down to scratch behind Atlas's ears. And especially proud of you, old friend. Still protecting your family after all these years. Atlas pressed against her leg, his mission complete, but his vigilance undiminished. The house was secure, his family was safe, and the threats had been neutralized. But as the security team began processing the scene and police sirens wailed in the distance, the Belgian Malinois maintained his tactical awareness. After all, once a warrior, always a warrior. And his war wasn't against the cartels anymore. It was for the family that had given him a new purpose, a new mission, and a new reason to keep fighting. The next hour transformed the Ramirez property into a hive of activity. Police cruisers lined the street, their emergency lights painting the neighborhood in alternating red and blue. FBI agents arrived shortly after, their presence a testament to the significance of capturing a high-ranking Los Zetas operative on American soil. Through it all, Atlas remained at his post, positioned between his family and the controlled chaos unfolding around them. Mrs. Ramirez, Special Agent Sarah, Jen approached, her badge displayed prominently. We're going to need a full statement, but first, can you tell me how you knew to contact this particular security team? Carmen sat on the front steps of her porch, one hand resting on Atlas's broad back. The Belgian Malinois had refused to leave her side since the threat had been neutralized, his protective instincts still engaged. My husband Miguel, she explained, he arranged everything before he died. The panic room, the security protocols, the emergency response team, it was all part of his contingency plan. Agent Chen nodded, making notes. And the dog? She gestured toward Atlas, who watched her with intelligent eyes. Our preliminary reports suggest he was instrumental in defending the property. A slight smile crossed Carmen's face. Atlas isn't just a dog. He was Miguel's partner in Mexico's Special Forces Canine unit. They specialized in cartel interdiction operations. When Miguel was killed, he made arrangements for Atlas to retire with us, his way of making sure we'd always be protected. That explains a few things, Chen replied, looking at the surveillance footage playing on her tablet. The video showed Atlas moving through the basement with military precision, his attacks coordinated and tactical. Our technical team says the cartel members' body cameras captured some remarkable footage. Your dog wasn't just attacking, he was using advanced combat tactics. Atlas remembers his training, Carmen said simply. Miguel always said that a warrior's skills don't fade. They just wait for the moment they're needed again. Across the lawn, Sofia sat with a crisis counselor, wrapped in a shock blanket despite the Texas heat. Atlas's ears remained focused on her location, monitoring her status, even as he stayed with Carmen. The girl had performed flawlessly during the crisis, following every protocol Miguel had drilled into her. You should know, Agent Chen continued, her voice lower, we've been building a case against this particular Los Zetas cell for months. Their leader, Javier Mendoza, has been a ghost, impossible to track. The fact that he came here personally. She paused, choosing her words carefully. This wasn't just about revenge for what your husband did in Mexico. They wanted something specific from you. Carmen nodded. Access codes. I'm a senior systems developer for a financial software company. Our platforms handle international wire transfers for several major banks. They thought they could use Sofia to force my cooperation. They didn't count on your preparation, Chen observed, or on Atlas. As if recognizing his name, the Belgian Malinois shifted slightly, his posture remaining alert despite the secure perimeter established by law enforcement. 3 years of peaceful family life hadn't dulled his tactical awareness. If anything, having a family to protect had sharpened it. Mrs. Ramirez, one of the security team members, approached, his professional demeanor marked by military bearing. We've completed our sweep of the property. All entry points are secure, and we've documented the tactical modifications Mr. Ramirez made to the house. Impressive work. He turned this place into a fortress without any visible signs from the outside. Carmen reached down to scratch Atlas behind his ears, earning a soft whine of contentment that seemed at odds with his recent display of combat prowess. Miguel always said the best defense is the one your enemy doesn't see coming. They thought they were raiding a suburban home. Instead, they walked into a prepared defensive position with a retired war dog as its guardian. The security team member smiled. Speaking of which, our tactical review shows Atlas engaged 8 hostile targets in close quarters, neutralized 6, and forced 2 to retreat, all without causing any fatal injuries. That's some seriously controlled aggression. He still got it. He never lost it, Sofia called out from across the lawn, her voice stronger now. He just saves it for protecting us. Agent Chen's phone buzzed with a message. Preliminary. Interrogation results, she reported after checking it. Mendoza is talking, apparently having his operation dismantled by the same dog that helped ruin his cartel career in Mexico has made him cooperative. Atlas's ears pricked forward at the change in tone, but his body remained relaxed. The immediate threat had passed, and his family was secure. Yet there remained about him an air of readiness, a subtle reminder that behind the gentle family pet lurked a trained warrior ready to react at a moment's notice. What happens now? Sofia asked, walking over to join her mother. Atlas shifted, positioned slightly, maintaining his protective triangle between both family members and the nearest unknown persons. "We'll need to relocate you temporarily," Agent Chen explained, "just until we can fully process the cartel members and ensure there aren't any other cells targeting your family. Standard witness protection protocols." Carmen nodded, then gestured. "To Atlas. He comes with us." "Of course," Chen agreed quickly, having seen the footage of Atlas in action. "In fact, I'd say he's now considered a vital part of your protective detail." Atlas pressed against Sofia's leg as the girl knelt to hug him, his posture simultaneously protective and gentle. In that moment, he embodied both aspects of his nature: the fierce warrior who had terrorized cartel members in the darkness, and the loving family protector who had found his true purpose in safeguarding these two precious lives. 2 days after the attack, Carmen sat in a secure FBI safe house, reviewing surveillance footage from their home security system. Atlas lay at her feet, his watchful presence a constant reminder that they were protected. The Belgian Malinois had refused to rest properly until they'd arrived at this new location, thoroughly swept the premises, and established a defensive routine that satisfied his tactical assessment. "It's remarkable," Agent Chen commented, pausing the video, showing Atlas's methodical takedown of the cartel members in the basement. "Our behavioral analysts have never seen anything like it. He wasn't just attacking. He was implementing advanced small unit tactics, isolating targets, using psychological warfare, controlling the battlefield environment." Sofia, curled up on the couch with her tablet, looked up proudly. "That's because Atlas isn't just a military dog. Papi said he was something special. Even in the unit, they called him El Fantasma because he could appear and disappear like a ghost during operations." Agent Chen nodded, switching to another camera angle. "We've been going through old case files from Mexico. Your dog was involved in some of the most successful anti-cartel operations of the past decade. The cartels actually put a bounty on him, $50,000 for proof of his death. They feared him more than some of our human operators." "Miguel used to say that Atlas's greatest weapon wasn't his strength or his training," Carmen added, watching the footage. "It was his intelligence. He doesn't just follow commands, he adapts, thinks, plans. The cartels never understood that. They thought he was just a well-trained attack dog." On the screen, Atlas could be seen using the basement's architecture to his advantage, herding cartel members into prepared kill zones, though he'd chosen to disable rather than kill. His movements showed not just training, but tactical understanding, the product of years of combat experience combined with an innate intelligence that set him apart from other military working dogs. "We found something interesting in Mendoza's phone," Agent Chen continued, pulling out a tablet. "Apparently, there was considerable debate within the cartel about this operation. Some of their intelligence suggested that your dog might be the same one from Mexico, but Mendoza dismissed it. He couldn't believe that a war dog could transition to being a family pet." Atlas's ears twitched at Mendoza's name, but he remained focused on his guard duty, his eyes regularly scanning the safe house's entry points. The facility was secure, with multiple FBI teams on rotation outside, but Atlas maintained his vigilance. Some habits born in combat and reinforced by love never faded. "That was their mistake," Sofia said, reaching down to stroke Atlas's fur. "They thought being a family pet made him soft. They didn't understand that it made him stronger. Now he fights for love, not just duty." Carmen felt tears welling in, her eyes at her daughter's insight. Miguel had said something similar when he first partnered with Atlas in Mexico. "Most handlers try to make their dogs into weapons," he had told her. "I wanted to make Atlas into a guardian. The difference is love." We've had requests from multiple agencies to study Atlas's performance, Agent Chen mentioned, scrolling through her notes. The way he maintained his training while adapting to family life, his tactical decision-making during the attack, it's unprecedented. The military working dog program wants to revise their retirement protocols based on this incident. Atlas lifted his head, looking at Chen with those intelligent eyes that had seen so much combat, yet remained so gentle with his family. The FBI agent found herself wondering how much of the conversation he actually understood. The footage suggested an almost human level of tactical awareness. "There's something else you should know," Chen continued, her tone becoming more serious. The cartel's plan wasn't just about accessing financial systems. Mendoza admitted that they wanted to prove a point, to show that no one who opposed them could ever truly escape. "Your family was meant to be an example." Carmen's hand tightened in Atlas's fur. "Instead, they became the example of why you don't threaten a family protected by a warrior who fights for love." A notification pinged on Chen's phone. "The transport team is ready. We'll be moving you to a more permanent, safe location tonight. A place where you can start rebuilding while we dismantle what's left of Mendoza's network." Sofia looked worried for the first time since the attack. "Will we have to hide forever?" "No, mi amor," Carmen assured her. "Your father made sure of that. The evidence he gathered, combined with what we captured during the attack, it's enough to cripple this cartel's operations in both countries. They'll never be able to threaten us again." Atlas rose smoothly to his feet, moving to press against Sofia's side. His posture communicated what words couldn't, that wherever they went, whatever challenges lay ahead, he would be there to protect them. He was no longer just a retired military dog, nor simply a family pet. He had become something unique, a warrior whose battlefield expertise was perfectly balanced with his role as guardian and companion. "You know," Agent Chen observed, watching Atlas comfort Sofia while simultaneously maintaining his tactical awareness of the room, "in all my years with the FBI, I've never seen anything quite like this. A war dog who became a family guardian without losing his edge, who fights with the skill of a soldier but the heart of a protector. Miguel Ramirez didn't just leave you a pet. He left you a guardian angel with the training of a special forces operator and the devotion of a family member." 1 week after the attack, the Ramirez family settled into their new temporary home, a secure compound in the Texas Hill Country that had once been a private military contractor's training facility. Atlas took to the environment immediately, his military background evident in the way he systematically explored and memorized every detail of the sprawling property. "He's been different since that night," Sofia observed, watching Atlas complete another of his meticulous perimeter checks. "Not scary different, but more focused, like he remembers who he used to be." Carmen nodded, understanding exactly what her daughter meant. While Atlas remained their loving, gentle companion, there was a new edge to his vigilance. The attack had reawakened something in him, not just his combat training, but a deeper understanding of the vital importance of his guardian role. "Your father once told me that military dogs never really forget their training," Carmen explained, watching Atlas pause to investigate a sound in the distance. "They just store it away, like a soldier storing his weapon, always ready when needed, but not letting it define their whole life." The compound's security team had developed an immense respect for Atlas. They'd reviewed the footage from the attack countless times, studying how the Belgian Malinois had transformed their suburban home into a tactical battleground. Several of the team members were former military dog handlers themselves, and they marveled at Atlas's ability to switch seamlessly between family pet and combat operator. Mrs. Ramirez, Captain Torres, the security team leader, approached with a tablet in hand, We've finished analyzing the compilation of Atlas's defensive actions from your home security system. I have to say, in 20 years of working with military dogs, I've never seen anything like this. He played a sequence showing Atlas's methodical defense of the basement. The infrared footage revealed how the dog had used the darkness and confined space to maximum advantage, implementing advanced small unit tactics that seemed impossible for a four-legged operator. Look here, Torres pointed to a particular sequence. He's not just attacking targets of opportunity. He's herding them, controlling their movement patterns, forcing them to bunch up or separate based on tactical advantage. This isn't just training, this is strategic thinking. Sofia beamed with pride. Atlas is the smartest dog in the world, she declared with absolute conviction. That's why Puppy chose him for his partner. Torres nodded thoughtfully. Your father's mission records from Mexico support that. Atlas had the highest mission success rate in the unit's history. But what's truly remarkable is how he's adapted those skills to civilian protection. He's not just following old training patterns. He's modified his tactical approach specifically to defend a family unit. As if aware he was the topic of discussion, Atlas trotted over to join them, positioning himself naturally in a way that gave him clear sightlines to all approaches, while staying within easy reach of both Carmen and Sofia. His alert but relaxed posture spoke of a predator at rest, capable of explosive action at a moment's notice, but comfortable in his current safety assessment. The FBI's behavioral analysis team wants to do a full study, Torres continued. They believe Atlas might represent an entirely new paradigm for military working dog retirement. Most service dogs struggle with the transition to civilian life. They either can't maintain their training edge or can't fully adapt to family life. Atlas has somehow mastered both. Carmen reached down to scratch behind Atlas's ears, earning a soft whine of contentment that seemed at odds with his recent display of combat prowess. Miguel always said Atlas was special. He told me once that most military dogs are trained to be weapons, but Atlas was trained to be a guardian. The difference is in here. She tapped her chest, right over her heart. That's evident in how he handled the intruders, Torres agreed, swiping to another video segment. See how he consistently uses disabling rather than lethal force? He's maintaining absolute tactical control while minimizing casualties. That's incredibly rare, even for human operators in high-stress situations. Sofia had moved to sit on the ground next to Atlas, who automatically shifted position to maintain his defensive coverage while accommodating her presence. He knows the difference between bad guys who need to be stopped and people who just need to be scared away, she said with the simple clarity of a child. Puppy taught him that strength isn't just about fighting, it's about protecting. The security team had initially planned to integrate their own working dogs into the compound's defense, but Atlas had made that unnecessary. He had seamlessly incorporated himself into their security protocols, anticipating patrol patterns and instinctively coordinating with the human operators in a way that spoke of his extensive military background. We've had another request from the Joint Special Operations Command, Torres mentioned, checking his phone. They want to incorporate the footage from the attack into their advanced canine training program. Apparently, Atlas's performance is rewriting some of their tactical doctrines regarding the capabilities of military working dogs. Carmen watched as her daughter leaned against Atlas's solid frame, completely at ease despite the recent trauma they'd endured. The Belgian Malinois maintained his alert watch even as he gently nuzzled Sofia's hair, embodying the perfect balance between warrior and protector that made him unique. 2 weeks into their stay at the secure compound, signs of healing began to emerge. Sofia's nightmares, which had initially plagued her after the attack, started to diminish, largely thanks to Atlas's unwavering presence. The Belgian Malinois had taken to sleeping in a precise position that placed him between her bed and the door, maintaining his protective watch even in the depths of night. "Tell me again about Atlas's first mission with Papi," Sofia asked one evening as they sat on the compound's covered patio. The setting sun painted the Texas hills in brilliant oranges and purples, while Atlas maintained his usual alert but relaxed guard position. Carmen smiled, remembering how Miguel had shared this story with her. "It was in Tijuana," she began, watching Atlas's ears prick forward at the familiar tale. "Your father's unit had been tracking a group of cartel members who were using underground tunnels to move drugs across the border. The tunnels were dark, dangerous, and full of traps. None of the other dogs could handle the psychological pressure of working in such confined spaces." Sofia leaned forward, even though she'd heard the story before. But Atlas was different. "Yes, mi amor. Atlas didn't just overcome the challenges. He excelled. He learned to use the darkness as a weapon, to move silently, to think tactically. The cartel members started spreading rumors about a ghost dog that could appear and disappear at will. That's how he earned his nickname, El Fantasma." Atlas's tail thumped softly against the deck at the mention of his old call sign. Despite his civilian retirement, he had never forgotten his military origins. The recent attack had proven that his skills remained sharp, honed now by an even deeper purpose: protecting his family. Captain Torres approached, maintaining a respectful distance until Atlas acknowledged him with a slight tail wag. The security team had quickly learned to respect the dog's protocols, understanding that his behaviors weren't just training, but tactical intelligence in action. "We've received an interesting update from the FBI's analysis team," Torres reported, taking a seat. "They've been studying Atlas's performance during the attack, particularly his decision-making processes. What they've found is remarkable." He pulled out his tablet, showing them a thermal imaging sequence from the basement confrontation. "See how he systematically isolates targets, uses psychological warfare, and maintains tactical control of the environment. He's not just following training protocols, he's adapting them to the specific situation and objectives." Carmen nodded, understanding. Miguel always said Atlas had something special. Not just intelligence, but a kind of wisdom. He understands the why behind his actions, not just the how. "That's exactly what the analysts are seeing," Torres agreed. "Most military dogs are trained to engage threats directly, but Atlas showed extraordinary tactical restraint. He used fear and confusion as weapons, minimizing actual physical engagement while maximizing psychological impact." Sofia reached over to scratch Atlas behind his ears. "Because he knew his job wasn't just to fight the bad guys, but to keep us safe, right, boy?" Atlas pressed his head into her hand while maintaining his surveillance of their surroundings. His ability to show affection while staying tactically aware was just another example of his unique capabilities. "The behavioral specialists have a theory," Torres continued. "They believe Atlas's time as a family dog hasn't diminished his combat effectiveness, it's enhanced it. By giving him something deeply personal to protect, you've actually sharpened his tactical decision-making." Carmen thought about how Atlas had handled the home invasion. He hadn't just fought off the intruders, he had controlled the entire engagement, keeping them occupied and off balance while Sofia escaped. Every action had served the primary mission of protecting his family. "We've also received word about Mendoza's interrogation," Torres added, his voice lower. "He's still shaken by the encounter. Keeps talking about how the dog they faced wasn't the same one they remembered from Mexico. Says Atlas fought with something more than training, something that made him more dangerous than any military working dog he'd encountered before." "Love," Sofia said simply, displaying that straightforward wisdom that children sometimes possess. "Atlas fought harder because he loves us. Papi always said that's what made him special." As if confirming her words, Atlas rose smoothly to his feet, moving to investigate a sound from the perimeter. His movements were fluid, purposeful, combining military precision with an almost supernatural awareness of his environment. The security team watched with professional appreciation as he completed his check and returned to his post. "Your father would be proud," Carmen told Sofia, watching Atlas settle back into his guard position. "Not just of how brave you were during the attack, but of how you've helped Atlas become something more than just a military dog or a family. You bet. You've helped him become what Miguel always knew he could be, a guardian who fights with both skill and heart." The setting sun cast long shadows across the compound as they sat together, a family bonded by love and protected by a warrior who had found his truest purpose. Atlas maintained his vigilant watch, his powerful frame relaxed but ready, embodying the perfect synthesis of military precision and family devotion that made him unique. In the distance, a helicopter passed over the hills, its sound carrying across the evening air. Atlas's ears tracked its movement, but his body remained calm. He had already identified it as part of the regular security patrol. Every assessment, every reaction was filtered through both his tactical training and his deep connection to his family. A month after the attack, Agent Chen arrived at the compound with news that would change everything. The FBI had finished processing the intelligence gathered from Mendoza's captured cell, revealing a network far more extensive than initially suspected. Atlas watched from his guard position as Chen spread photographs across the dining room table, his keen eyes taking in every detail. "Mendoza's cooperation has exceeded our expectations," Chen explained, pointing to various surveillance photos. "He's not just giving us names. He's providing detailed intelligence about Los Zetas' entire North American operation. The attack on your family appears to have broken something in him." Carmen studied the photographs while Atlas moved to stand beside her, his posture alert but calm. "The incident with the dog," Chen continued, "it wasn't just about being defeated. Mendoza keeps talking about how seeing Atlas in action forced him to confront something he'd been denying for years." "What do you mean?" Carmen asked, feeling Atlas press against her leg reassuringly. "In his prime, Atlas was legendary among the cartels," Chen explained. "They feared him more than any other military working dog because he didn't just attack. He hunted. He could track targets for days, adapt to their countermeasures, think tactically. When Mendoza thought Atlas had died alongside Miguel, it reinforced his belief that the old guard was gone, that the cartels could operate with impunity." Sofia, who had been quietly doing her homework nearby, looked up. "But Atlas showed them they were wrong." Chen nodded, smiling at the girl's insight. "Exactly. Seeing Atlas not just alive, but operating at an even higher level, protecting his family with military precision, it shattered Mendoza's worldview. He realized that the forces he feared hadn't disappeared. They'd evolved, become stronger." Atlas's ears twitched at the sound of an approaching vehicle, but his body language remained relaxed. He had already identified it as part of the regular security rotation. His ability to maintain situational awareness while participating in family activities had become a source of fascination for the behavioral analysts studying him. "There's more," Chen continued, pulling out another file. "Based on the intelligence we've gathered, we believe Los Zetas had been planning similar operations against other former operators and their families. Your case was meant to be a prototype, a way to prove that no one who opposed them could ever truly escape." Carmen's hand found Atlas's fur, drawing strength from his solid presence. "Instead, they proved the opposite." "Precisely," Chen agreed. "The footage of Atlas's defense has spread through cartel circles like wildfire. The myth of El Fantasma has been reborn, but with a new dimension. Now he's not just a military weapon, he's a guardian spirit who watches over the families of those who fought against them. Captain Torres, who had joined them for the briefing, added his perspective. The psychological impact cannot be overstated. The cartels spent years trying to convince their operators that they could escape their past, find normal lives. Atlas didn't just defeat their tactical team, he shattered their entire narrative. Sofia moved to sit closer to Atlas, who adjusted his position to maintain his protective triangle between her, Carmen, and the room's entry points. Because Atlas showed them that being a family dog didn't make him weak, she said. It made him stronger. The tactical analysis supports that, Torres noted, pulling up footage on his tablet. Atlas's combat effectiveness has actually increased since his retirement. His movements show a perfect integration of military training and protective instinct. He's not just fighting to complete a mission, he's fighting to protect what he loves. Chen spread out another set of documents, which brings us to why I'm here. The FBI wants to establish a new program using your case as a model. We believe other retired military working dogs could be similarly effective in protective roles, particularly for families at risk from cartel retaliation. Atlas's ears perked forward, his intelligent eyes following the conversation with apparent understanding. Carmen wasn't surprised. Miguel had always said Atlas could comprehend far more than most people realized. But they won't be Atlas, Sofia said proudly, hugging the Belgian Malinois. No, Chen agreed with a smile. Atlas is unique. What he's demonstrated goes beyond training or instinct. He's shown us that a military working dog can successfully transition to civilian life without losing their edge, that love and loyalty can actually enhance their combat effectiveness rather than diminish it. Carmen watched as Atlas gently nuzzled Sofia's hand while maintaining his tactical awareness of their surroundings. In that simple action, she saw the perfect embodiment of what made him special. His ability to be both warrior and protector, combining military precision with unconditional love. Miguel would be proud, she said softly. He always said Atlas was meant for something more than just being a weapon. He believed that true strength comes from having something worth protecting. Agent Chen gathered her files, preparing to leave. One last thing, she added. The behavioral analysis team wants to study Atlas's methods, document his unique capabilities. They believe he represents an entirely new paradigm for military working dog development, one that focuses on creating guardians rather than just soldiers. Atlas remained at his post as the meeting concluded, his vigilant presence a constant reminder that some warriors find their greatest strength not in combat, but in protection. He had transcended his military origins to become something unprecedented, a guardian whose tactical prowess was matched only by his devotion to his family. 6 weeks after the attack, the Ramirez family prepared to move to their new permanent home, a secure property carefully chosen and modified according to the lessons learned from their experience. Atlas supervised the packing process with his usual thoroughness, investigating every box and container, maintaining his protective watch even as their surroundings changed. The new place has even better security features than your old house, Captain Torres explained, showing them the blueprints. We've incorporated everything we learned from how Atlas defended your home. Multiple fallback positions, tactical advantages, built into the architecture, and a state-of-the-art panic room designed with both human and canine operators in mind. Sofia sat on the floor next to Atlas, watching as he examined the moving boxes with professional interest. The Belgian Malinois had developed an even closer bond with the girl since the attack, his protective instincts refined by their shared experience. He wasn't just her guardian anymore. They were partners, each understanding their role in keeping their family safe. Atlas's performance has revolutionized our approach to residential security, Torres continued, pointing out specific features on the blueprints. The way he used your home's layout during the attack, turning everyday spaces into tactical advantages, it's changed how we think about defensive architecture. Carmen noticed how Atlas's ears tracked their conversation, while his eyes maintained their regular sweep of the room. Even now, weeks after the threat had passed, his vigilance never wavered, but there was a peace to his alertness, a calm confidence that came from knowing his family was secure. The FBI's behavioral unit has finished their initial report, Agent Chen added, joining them with a thick folder. They're calling Atlas's case a paradigm shift in understanding military working dog capabilities. The way he maintained his combat effectiveness while fully integrating into family life, it's unprecedented. Sofia beamed with pride. That's because Atlas isn't just a military dog or a family dog. He's both, and that makes him special. Chen smiled at the girl's insight. The analysts agree. They've identified what they're calling the Atlas Protocol, a new framework for training military working dogs that emphasizes emotional intelligence and adaptability alongside tactical skills. The goal is to create more guardians like Atlas, capable of transitioning between combat operator and family protector. Atlas's ears pricked forward at the mention of his name, but his position remained steady. He had positioned himself, as always, to maintain clear sightlines to all entries while staying within easy reach of both Sofia and Carmen. His tactical awareness had become so natural that it was easy to forget the lethal capability that lay beneath his gentle family demeanor. We've had requests from multiple agencies to study his methods, Torres noted, pulling up footage on his tablet. The way he controlled the battlefield psychology during the attack, using fear and confusion as weapons, maintaining tactical superiority while minimizing actual violence. It's becoming a case study in advanced canine operations. Carmen watched as Atlas gently nudged a box with his nose, checking its contents before allowing the movers to take it. Miguel always said Atlas's greatest strength wasn't his training or his physical capabilities. It was his heart, his ability to understand the deeper purpose behind his actions. The evidence supports that, Chen agreed. During the attack, Atlas didn't just follow his military training. He adapted it, modified his tactics to prioritize family protection over enemy engagement. That level of strategic thinking suggests not just intelligence, but genuine understanding. Sofia wrapped her arms around Atlas's neck, and the dog responded by pressing against her while maintaining his vigilant posture. "He protects us because he loves us," she said simply. Puppy said that's what makes the difference between a weapon and a guardian. The morning sun streamed through the compound's windows, casting long shadows across the floor. Atlas's dark coat gleamed as he moved to investigate a sound from outside, his movements fluid and purposeful. The security team watched with professional appreciation as he completed his check and returned to his post. "Your new home is ready whenever you are," Chen informed them, closing her folder. "We've established a permanent protective detail, though after seeing Atlas in action, it feels almost redundant. The cartel's influence in the region has been severely compromised, thanks largely to Mendoza's cooperation. And the legend of El Fantasma has been reborn," Torres added with a smile. "But now he's not just a military ghost that haunts cartel operations. He's become something they fear even more, a guardian spirit who proves that their former enemies can find not just safety, but strength in their new lives." Carmen reached down to scratch behind Atlas's ears, earning a soft whine of contentment that seemed at odds with his recent display of combat prowess. In that moment, she saw both sides of his nature in perfect balance, the hardened warrior who had terrorized cartel operators and the loving guardian who had found his truest purpose in protecting his family. "Ready to see our new home," she asked Sofia and Atlas. The Belgian Malinois responded by moving smoothly to his standard escort position, alert but relaxed, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. He had proven that a warrior's strength doesn't diminish with peace. It simply finds a deeper, more meaningful purpose. 3 months after the attack, life had found a new rhythm in the Ramirez family's secure home. Atlas patrolled their sprawling property with the same dedication he'd shown in his military days. But there was a contentment to his vigilance now, the satisfaction of a warrior who had found his perfect mission. "Your story," Sofia proudly announced to her class during a special presentation day, "isn't just about a military dog who became a family pet. It's about how love can make you stronger, not weaker." Atlas sat regally beside her at the front of the classroom, his presence commanding attention without creating fear. The school had made a special exception to allow him to attend, partly due to his status as a protective asset, and partly because his story had become something of a legend in the community. "Before Atlas came to live with us," Sofia continued, clicking through photographs on the presentation screen, "he was a hero in Mexico, helping my father fight against dangerous cartels. They called him El Fantasma, the ghost, because he could appear and disappear like a shadow, protecting good people and stopping bad guys." The students leaned forward, captivated by both the story and the impressive Belgian Malinois, who seemed to understand every word. Atlas maintained his professional demeanor, but his proximity to Sofia and the gentle way he leaned against her leg showed the deep bond they shared. "But Atlas's greatest mission wasn't in Mexico," Sofia explained, showing a family photo. "It was becoming our guardian after my father died. Some people thought that retiring to be a family dog would make him lose his special skills. They were wrong. Being part of our family made his skills even stronger, because now he fights for love." Carmen, watching from the back of the classroom with Agent Chen, felt tears welling in her eyes. Atlas's ears tracked every movement in the room, while his body remained perfectly positioned to protect Sofia. Even here, in this secure environment, his dedication never wavered. 3 months ago," Sofia continued, her voice strong and clear, "some bad men thought Atlas was just a pet. They didn't understand that being a family guardian made him more powerful than he ever was as a military dog. Because now he has something more important than orders to follow. He has a family to protect." Agent Chen leaned over to whisper, "To Carmen, the FBI's Protective Detail Unit has officially coded Atlas as a primary security asset. In their words, no human security team could provide the level of dedicated protection he maintains." On the screen, footage from their home security system played, carefully edited to be appropriate for the classroom. It showed Atlas in various daily activities, playing with Sofia, watching over the house, practicing his skills in the backyard. His ability to switch instantly from gentle companion to alert guardian drew murmurs of appreciation from the audience. "Atlas taught us something really important," Sofia said, moving to her conclusion. "He showed that being gentle and loving doesn't mean you can't also be strong and brave. My dad used to say that true strength comes from protecting what you love, and Atlas proves that every day." The Belgian Malinois' tail thumped softly against the floor at the mention of Miguel's name. 3 years after his death, Atlas still remembered his first partner, honoring his memory by protecting the family he'd left behind. "The bad men thought they were strong because they could scare people," Sofia continued. "But Atlas showed them what real strength looks like. It's not about being the scariest or the most dangerous. It's about having something worth fighting for and the heart to protect it." As Sofia finished her presentation to enthusiastic applause, Atlas maintained his professional composure while subtly pressing closer to her side. His mission hadn't ended with the defeat of Mendoza's team. It had evolved, becoming something deeper and more meaningful. Later that evening, as the family sat on their new home's secure patio watching the sunset, Carmen reflected on how far they'd come. Atlas lay at their feet, his vigilant eyes scanning the property's perimeter while enjoying the peaceful moment with his family. "You know," Agent Chen had told her earlier that day, "Atlas's story has changed how we think about military working dogs. He's proved that these incredible animals don't have to choose between being warriors or family companions. They can be both, and being both makes them stronger." Sofia sat on the ground next to Atlas, gently running her fingers through his fur. The Belgian Malinois responded with a soft whine of contentment while maintaining his protective watch. In that simple interaction, Carmen saw the perfect synthesis of what made Atlas special, the hardened warrior and loving guardian, each aspect strengthening the other. "Papi would be proud," Sofia said softly, looking up at the darkening sky. "Not just because Atlas protected us, but because he showed everyone what Papi always said, that love makes us stronger, not weaker." Atlas's ears pricked forward at Miguel's mention, and Carmen could have sworn she saw understanding in those intelligent eyes. He had transcended his training, becoming something more than just a military asset or a family pet. He was a guardian in the truest sense, combining the skills of a warrior with the heart of a protector. As night fell over their secure sanctuary, Atlas maintained his endless watch, ready to face any threat that might come. But his vigilance was no longer born solely from military training. It was powered by something stronger, the love of a family he had chosen to protect, and the legacy of a partner who had trusted him with his most precious responsibility. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.